Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Renegade Immortal episode number 170 based on novel. So let's start. The blood shadow moved and charged toward the demonic shadow. Thick demonic spiritual energy poured out from the blood shadow. The demonic spiritual energy turned into demonic flames that shrouded the area, making it impossible to see what was happening inside. Outside the flame, Wang Lin had a majority of his blood taken and was now very weak. However, that demonic shadow's lance spell didn't stop, it was only stopped for a moment by the demonic flame before charging at Wang Lin. The lance rushed toward Wang Lin. The slaughter energy condensed on Wang Lin's finger and he pressed it against the tip of the lance without any hesitation. An explosive force entered Wang Lin's hand from the lance and consumed the slaughter energy inside him like crazy. At the same time, the slaughter energy entered the lance and began to destroy it. There was a series of explosions, making it seem like thunder was echoing between Wang Lin and the ancient demon. When the 1 million strands of slaughter energy were about to collapse, Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He then withdrew his finger and retreated several feet. The slaughter energy on his hand was given a brief moment of rest, so its unending power swelled up again, allowing him to immediately recover a bit. Wang Lin's finger reached out once more and landed on the lance as it closed in. This cycle continued until Wang Lin had retreated over 1,000 feet. Finally, the power of the lance weakened and was eventually destroyed by a strand of devilish energy from Wang Lin. Wang Lin's face was extremely pale and, due to the massive loss of blood, he was breathing hard. However, instead of stopping to rest, he quickly rushed away. He was rushing toward the Demon Valley at the center of the capital. The first step was to break the demonic screen around the capital. The second step was to get within 500 feet of the ancient demon to borrow his aura to call out Beilu's blood shadow. The third step was to go into the ancient demon's hiding place and take the item the ancient demon's soul was trapped in. Wang Lin had no intention of watching the battle between the two ancient demons inside the fog. He moved like a bolt of lightning and entered the holy land of the fire demon country, the Demon Valley. The Demon Valley was extremely quiet. In the depths of the valley stood a huge statue that was filled with demonic spiritual energy. Large amounts of demonic spiritual energy rose up into the sky toward the ancient demon's body to help it battle Beilu. Wang Lin took a step but quickly stopped. A ripple spread out from the statue, and as the ripple spread, the demonic spiritual energy coming from the statue stopped rising up into the sky. The demonic spiritual energy fused together to form an ancient demon avatar the same size as Wang Lin. This ancient demon had 2 horns and floated in the air. Strands of demonic spiritual energy floated behind the avatar and connected to the statue. He coldly looked at Wang Lin with eyes that had a rich, demonic glow. Wang Lin looked at the ancient demon, and after pondering a bit, he retreated. Although this ancient demon was only an avatar, it was also extremely powerful. Wang Lin calculated that unless he used Ling Qianho's sword energy, he wouldn't be able to fight against it. Wang Lin, break that statue and help me merge with it. If you do so, you won't have to help me anymore on the matter of merging with the other 7 ancient demons. As for the things I promised you, I'll do them immediately after I fuse. Didn't you want a comprehension of the inheritance of the ancient demon? Break the statue, and when I fuse with it, I'll take your divine sense in with me. As a result, it will be as if you had obtained 2 inheritances, which will benefit you greatly. Also, I have helped you many times already and only ask for this in return. Wang Lin, help me. Beilu's voice echoed in Wang Lin's heart. Wang Lin pondered a bit and let out a sigh. All the benefits that Beilu promised aside, just the fact that he helped Wang Lin through 2 life and death situations was enough for Wang Lin to act. Wang Lin's eyes became cold and he moved one of Ling Qianho's sword energies to his finger. The golden glow from the sword energy was released and lit up the entire Demon Valley. The ancient demon avatar made of demonic spiritual energy became serious. Then it moved both of his hands and drew in the air. Various demonic symbols giving off demonic spiritual energy appeared before it. Wang Lin took a deep breath and no longer hesitated as he threw Ling Qianho's sword energy out. At this moment, the entire Demon Valley was filled with sword energy, and the demonic spiritual energy collapsed under this sword energy. The tyrannical intent from Ling Qianho's sword energy exploded forth and turned into a storm that swept the demon valley. Crackling sounds came from the sword energy as the storm swept the area, and countless cracks immediately appeared on the sword energy. The sky was covered in sword energy, and the demonic spiritual energy was shredded by the sword energy. The symbols drawn by the ancient demon's avatar shined brightly. There was thin, black lightning linking them together to form a net that prevented Ling Qianho's sword energy form closing in. However, the fire demon country's ancient demon was using a majority of his divine sense in the battle against Bei Lu, and this avatar he had left here was only equal to a late-stage ascendant cultivator. If Wang Lin didn't have Ling Qianho's sword energy, it would have been a hopeless battle. However, with Ling Qianho's sword energy, Wang Lin was unstoppable. The sword energy rushed forth and released a bright, golden glow. The moment the sword energy touched the symbols, all of the symbols collapsed one by one. The sword energy pierced through the symbols and charged directly at the ancient demon's avatar. The ancient demon's avatar's expression changed greatly, and then it turned into a mass of demonic spiritual energy. It rushed out like crazy and surrounded Ling Qianho's sword energy. Sword hymns came from the thick demonic spiritual energy. Wang Lin took a step, and when he landed, he was before the statue. Without any hesitation, Wang Lin pressed his right hand on the statue. Stop! Two sounds louder than thunder arrived at the same time. One from the sky and one from the demonic fog trapping the sword energy. Both arrived almost at the same time, and they were each like thunder roaring at the same time. A huge hand descended from the sky and descended on Wang Lin at a shocking speed. The demonic fog also formed the head of an ancient demon that rushed at him to devour him. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and the celestial spiritual energy in his body activated. At the moment the hand and head rushed at him, the celestial spiritual energy inside his body poured into the statue. There was a series of cracking sounds and cracks appeared on the statue, then a large amount of demonic spiritual energy escaped through the cracks. At this moment, Ling Qianho's sword energy charged out of the demonic fog and pierced through the head coming at Wang Lin. Then, with one thought from Wang Lin, it landed on the statue. There was a loud bang and the statue completely collapsed. At the moment it collapsed, the hand coming at Wang Lin dissipated, and that was immediately followed by an unwilling roar from the sky. Shortly after, there were sounds of spells colliding. Bei Lu's attacks clearly made it so that the ancient demon couldn't bother Wang Lin. The statue collapsed and large amounts of demonic spiritual energy surged out. Wang Lin saw a piece of the hand's bone inside this thick demonic spiritual energy. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, then his right hand reached out and grabbed this bone. At the moment he touched the bone, an unimaginable force directly entered his body and smashed into his origin soul. Wang Lin's origin soul suddenly trembled and then he arrived in a mysterious space. There was no sky or earth, only an endless void. Although this was the case, there was a mysterious force shrouding the area. When Wang Lin's mind was here, he felt a sense of refinement that continued to rise. A series of scenes appeared in the void before him. These were all scenes of some of the spells he had learned in his life. One of the scenes was that of a very young boy waving his hand and slowly lifting a large stone. The young boy's eyes were filled with excitement as he continued to control the large stone. The scene trembled and collapsed. Then the young boy walked out from the scene and looked at Wang Lin. He let out a smile and sat down beside Wang Lin. However, his hand continued to move and the attraction spell was circling around him. The other scene was that of a cold-looking youth with long, flowing hair. His eyes were closed, but when he opened them, there was a flash of cold light. An unimaginable killing intent appeared in his eyes. Before him, countless core formation cultivators had their cores shattered one after another before they died. This youth also walked out from the scene. After looking at Wang Lin, he sat down as well. As his hair flowed in the air, there was a flash of the G-Realm's killing intent on his body. There was also a scene of Wang Lin using the Finger of Death, Demonic Finger, and the Underworld River, and the Wang Lins using the various spells all walked out and sat down. Aside from this, there was another scene that shocked Wang Lin's mind. It was a Wang Lin wearing a grey robe. He had 1 million strands of slaughter energy surrounding him, and everywhere he went was filled with destruction. He seemed to notice Wang Lin's gaze and turned to look at Wang Lin. His eyes were completely grey. All of the Wang Lins from these various scenes walked out, and all of them scattered. Some had their eyes closed and were cultivating. Some were displaying their spells. One of them was actually using the Stop Celestial spell. Wang Lin was deeply shocked by the scene before him. He was not unfamiliar with this scene. Back then, when he was picking a spell from the All-Seer, he saw the same thing. Each All-Seer was using a different spell. However, Wang Lin immediately sobered from the shock, and he noticed the difference. The figures inside the All-Seer's mind were solid as if they were real people, so it was impossible to tell the difference. However, his own figures were between corporeal and incorporeal. They were neither solid nor illusionary. Corporeal and incorporeal, could it be? Could this be a spell that is created when one reaches the peak of the first step and is about to enter the illusory yin and corporeal yang stage? I was able to experience this change early due to the comprehension from the ancient demon inheritance. Wang Lin took a deep breath. He was only guessing about all of this and had no way of knowing the truth. Suddenly, these figures began to fade until there was no trace of them left. The one to fade the fastest was the grey-robed Wang Lin practicing the celestial slaughter art. At that instant, Wang Lin suddenly saw an opportunity, and his body floated forward. He fused with the grey-robed figure using the celestial slaughter art. In the blink of an eye, several months passed. The battle inside the Fire Demon country changed greatly, and the Sky Demon country withdrew their troops. The war, which lasted nearly a century, ended with the ancient demons devouring each other. Ancient demon Bei Lu completed the first devour and fused with the ancient demon of the Fire Demon country. He had reached a very powerful state, so he no longer needed Wang Lin's blood to take form and could leave by himself. Wang Lin sat in the lotus position with his eyes closed in the Dragon Lake near the Sky Demon country's capital. He was expressionless. When he touched the bone, he had entered a mysterious state. After Bei Lu devoured the other ancient demon soul, he used a spell to bring Wang Lin here. Time passed and several more months passed by. On this day, Wang Lin opened his eyes. At the moment he opened his eyes, there was a flash of golden light in them. His current aura was very different from before he went to the Fire Demon country. The current him looked more like a mortal scholar. Right now it seemed like there wasn't any celestial spiritual energy inside his body, making him seem like a normal person. But there was a fragrance on his body that gave people a refined feeling. After opening his eyes, Wang Lin let out a mouthful of foul air. My ancient demon race has had a spell since the beginning of time. This spell allowed us to comprehend the heavens and earth and make our own spells. This spell can be used on other life forms as well. However, aside from my ancient demon race, everyone else can only experience it once in their lifetime. Wang Lin pondered and then closed his eyes again. The scene of him fusing with the grey-robed figure filled his head. Looking back at it now, it seemed like it was all a dream, and there was lingering fear in his heart. Aside from you, I only gave the inheritance to 2 other cultivators. Both of them were able to feel the change that would occur in the next realm and even gained new understanding of their own spells. In particular, the second cultivator had the highest talent I have ever seen. He managed to create his own spell. That child's talent wasn't any weaker than my ancient demon clan's. Wang Lin closed his eyes and calmly asked, "Who?" "His name is Sun Yun. I wonder if you've heard of him." There was a hint of reminiscence in the ancient demon's voice. Sun Yun. Wang Lin opened his eyes. After pondering for a bit, he said, "Senior ancient demon, there is one final thing left in our agreement." A gust of demonic wind appeared inside the Dragon Lake, forming a vortex. It swept across the area and disappeared before Wang Lin, revealing a very demonic-looking youth. The most noticeable thing about this person were his green, demonic eyes. They gave off a demonic light that made him look very uncanny. After he appeared, he looked at Wang Lin before smiling and saying, "I naturally would not forget my promise to you. While you were comprehending, I used a spell to find the body of the divine sense from the pagoda." As the youth spoke, he casually waved his hand. Specks of light appeared where he waved his hand, and these lights combined to form an image. The image was that of a large chasm. From above, it looked like a giant crack in the ground. Strands of black gas would occasionally rush out of it. The impact of these strands of black gas caused even the image to tremble. This place is called the Tide Abyss by you cultivators. Your friend's aura is in there. There are only 6 entrances to the Tide Abyss. Go to the one in the Water Demon country, that is the one closest to your friend. Wang Lin looked at the picture. After pondering a bit, he asked, "What exactly is this Tide Abyss?" The youth hesitated for a bit and said, "There are certain places in space where the space itself collapses countless times. A tunnel leading to the unknown forms in these places since the space there is always collapsed. There is an unimaginable suction force inside the tunnel. The Tide Abyss is a place like this." Ancient Demon Bei Lu didn't say more, and Wang Lin didn't ask for more. Wang Lin could feel that Bei Lu was hiding a lot from him. However, if Bei Lu didn't want to speak, then it would be useless for Wang Lin to ask. Wang Lin's expression remained calm as he slowly asked, "If there are 6 entrances, then is it the same for exits?" The youth faintly smiled. This smile was slightly demonic. He said, "There is only one exit, and it is in the Fire Demon country." As he spoke, his right hand reached toward the image and the image collapsed. However, he caught all of the specks of light and turned them into a finger-sized jade. Then he waved his hand and threw the jade at Wang Lin. "Take this. Your divine sense can enter it and borrow my sight to see everything inside the Tide Abyss. This can be considered a gift from me for completing our agreement." Wang Lin caught the jade, clasped his hands, and said, "Many thanks, Senior Ancient Demon." The youth smiled and shook his head. He said, "I should be thanking you. You should go, I need to go into closed-door cultivation for a while." Wang Lin stood up and took a step forward. He completely disappeared and left the Dragon Lake. The youth looked at the direction Wang Lin went. His eyes gave off a demonic glow. "I only need 100 years of time to completely absorb the other 7 ancient demons. When that happens, I, Ancient Demon Bei Lu, will be reborn. Ancient Devil Ta Jiao, back then you managed to steal the reward after the battle. I want to see how much you have recovered in 100 years. Also, there is this little fellow. He has the aura of an ancient god in his soul. Although it is very faint, it is also very pure. It is a great tonic for my ancient demon and ancient devil clan. However, the more pure this aura is, the more I don't dare to devour it." When the youth thought about that aura, his heart trembled. Ancient god. That was the clan that obtained a majority of the power when the ancient order split. That strand of aura inside this little fellow is extremely powerful. The person who left that aura in his body was at least 8 stars. It is very possible for him to be 9 stars. A 9-star ancient god. Even if I were to work together with the ancient devil, it would be too easy for that ancient god to kill me. Most importantly, there was a very well-hidden intent within that aura. That intent made me tremble the moment I felt it. The only thing that can give off that kind of feeling is the royal bloodline. It was due to this aura that I was able to take form after borrowing his blood and not worry about his mind collapsing. Back then I didn't tell him the truth. Even if someone had the aura of an ancient god, it wouldn't be enough for me to take form without that hint of the royal bloodline. If I, an ancient devil Ta Jiao, can live until now, then an ancient god can too. If I were to extract that aura and absorb it, it would definitely be like planting a seed of trouble for the future. However, while I can resist this temptation, I don't know if ancient devil Ta Jiao can resist it as well. The Tide Abyss was a very mysterious part of the demon spirit land. This was the source of the tide phase on the outside. Over the countless years, large amounts of magic treasures, spirit stones, and spirit beasts were sucked into the demon spirit land and dragged here. At this moment, in the depths of the Tide Abyss, there was a vast expanse of black mist. There were several people sitting in a 1,000-foot wide open land within this black mist. One of the people was a middle-aged man. This person was very handsome, but there was a hint of his insidious nature on his face. Once a while, he gave off an ambitious aura. He was sitting in a lotus position at the center, and his expression was cold. Thick strands of death energy circled outside his body as he held a strangely shaped skull in his right hand and continuously stroked it. His eyes opened and closed. When his eyes opened, he released a gaze that was so dark and gloomy that it would cause the heart of anyone who met his gaze to collapse. There were 4 people sitting in the lotus position beside him. These 4 people were all wearing blue robes and had large swords behind their backs. Each of their expressions were as gloomy as his. Just at this moment, the black mist before them suddenly churned. A figure quickly charged out of the mist, revealing a man wearing blue as well. His face was bitter as he said, "Senior Greed, the beasts inside the mist didn't scatter, and there are more than before." The middle-aged man was Greed. He let out a cold snort and said, "It was I who underestimated this place. All of the beasts here were taken from the vastness of space and were then strengthened by the mysterious force here. It is natural for powerful beasts to appear here." At this moment, a Dalu sword sect disciple who had remained silent said, "Senior Greed, there are too many of these beasts, and each of them is extremely fierce. Normally, these kinds of beasts are extremely famous, but Junior has fought for a long time but can't recall what kind of beast they are." This person was sitting in a very interesting position. It was as if all the other disciples were sitting with him as the center. Greed looked at the person. He knew that the person who spoke was placed very highly in all these disciples' hearts. That was because he was their head senior apprentice brother, Chen Long. This person was the beloved disciple of Sword Saint Ling Qianhu and was very cunning. He also hid his cultivation so well that Greed had to take a few careful looks to see some clues. On the surface, this person was at the late stage of soul transformation, but in reality he was at the early stage of ascendant. Although he didn't have the highest cultivation level among the 12 swords, even Chou Nu, who had reached the mid-stage of ascendant, was extremely respectful towards him. After hearing Chen Long's words, Greed pondered for a bit and said, "These beasts are indeed extremely strange, even I have never seen them before. Space is infinite, and the heavens work in mysterious ways, so it is impossible for cultivators to know all life forms. These beasts were likely sucked in by the tide phase that happens once every 5,000 years. I'm afraid they have been here for a very long time, so it is not surprising to not recognize this beast." Chen Long no longer spoke and everyone else silently pondered. Waves of sharp roars slowly came from within the black mist. At the edge of the black mist, there was a beast that was several tens of feet wide, had black hair, and a sharp mouth. It flapped its wings as it ordered the area to be surrounded. Its red eyes released intense, cold light, and its long mouth would cause the heart of anyone who looked at it to tremble. If Wang Lin saw these beasts, he would immediately recognize them as mosquito beasts. However, these beasts weren't golden purple in color. Wu Ma, who was next to Chen Long, had a crestfallen expression as he whispered, "Shen, whose body has already been devoured by them, even his origin soul couldn't escape." Chen Long revealed a bitter expression. Of the 12 swords, aside from Wei Yang, who died, and Zi Shu and Hai Shu, who stayed outside, the remaining 9 members had all followed Greed to this tide abyss. Greed mentioned that after he observed this place for a while, he concluded that the greatest treasure in the demon spirit land was in this tide abyss. Everyone else beside Chen Long was tempted by Greed's words. They had personally seen countless treasures and exotic things that would make anyone's eyes red get sucked into this demon spirit land at the East Demon Spirit Sea. It could be said that their purpose for coming here, aside from getting the ancient demon's inheritance, was to get these items. Chen Long had always been calm. Although he felt that something was wrong, he couldn't find a reason to refuse. However, he did make a plan. He didn't have all of them enter together. Instead, he had 3 of them split off into another group with Chou Nyo as the leader to enter from a different entrance. They kept communicating with each other and even left Zi Shu and Hai Shu outside. When they had just entered the tide abyss, everything was very smooth. However, this immediately changed once Greed took some unknown item from a cave. They were suddenly attacked by these mysterious beasts and were trapped here. They were unable to escape and had been trapped here for nearly 100 years. Although 100 years sounds slow, it passed by very quickly for them. They were trapped in this abyss without day or night. The dark fog surrounded them, and if they dared to go out, they would encounter and be attacked by those countless beasts. Junior brother Shen, who died during an attempt at a forced breakthrough. Even though he used Master Sword energy before he died and killed some beasts, there was simply too many of them. Chen Long knew that even if they gathered all of the sword energies, they wouldn't be able to leave here. This can't last. Chen Long took a deep breath, stood up, and looked at Greed. His action immediately caused the other 4 Da Lu sword sect disciples to stand up. They stood in positions that surrounded Greed. Greed's expression was still gloomy as he let out a hoarse laugh. "Fellow nephews, what is the meaning of this?" Chen Long said, in a serious tone. "Senior Greed, Junior wants to know what you obtained in that cave." Greed's eyes revealed a hint of mockery as he said, "You want to know?" With that, he slapped his bag of holding and an oval-shaped egg appeared in his hand. There weren't any signs of life on this egg, it was shrouded with an aura of death. Chen Long's gaze fell on the egg for a moment. After all this time, he had gained some understanding of Greed. Greed's cultivation was related to death, so it would make sense for Greed to use this to help his cultivation. However, it wasn't certain if this was really what Greed had found. "Little brats, this old man will ignore your disrespectful tone in consideration of your master's face once. If there is a next time, don't blame me for being ruthless. HMPH, when I started cultivating, you guys weren't even born yet. No one who dares to speak to me like this lives." Greed's eyes became cold. Although his voice was soft, in the Da Lu sword sect disciples' ears, it was like roaring thunder. Aside from Chen Long, everyone else subconsciously backed up. Chen Long lowered his head and a hint of killing intent flashed across his eyes. He respectfully said, "Please don't blame us, Senior." Junior was just impatient. "After all, we have been trapped here for almost 100 years. Greed closed his eyes and slowly said, "What's the rush? At most your master will arrive in 100 years and will rescue you all." Chen Long sat down in the lotus position and began to ponder. He had already found something strange about Greed. Greed seemed to want to stay here and not leave. There must be a reason for that. While the Da Lu sword sect disciples were having a disagreement with Greed, Wang Lin was rushing toward the Tide Abyss exit in the Fire Demon country. Wang Lin had already heard about this Tide Abyss from Yao Shishue. According to Yao Shishue, the token that made even people like the All-Seer's eyes turn red was inside the depths of the Tide Abyss. Wang Lin was also aware that Greed and the disciples of the Da Lu sword sect had mysteriously disappeared 100 years ago and that their whereabouts were unknown. He had a bold guess that Greed's group had also gone to the Tide Abyss. If Greed's group came out, then it wouldn't be an issue. However, if they were still inside, then Wang Lin must properly prepare the exit in the Fire Demon country to cover his bases. He was using greater teleportation, so he moved very fast toward the Tide Abyss exit in the Fire Demon country. While he flew, he couldn't help but recall the scene where he fused with the grey figure during his experience of the ancient demon's inheritance. The grey-robed figure was the one that practiced the celestial slaughter art. At the moment he fused with the grey figure, he felt like he had gained enlightenment and the number of slaughter energy strands increased from 1 million to 10 million. However, at the instant the slaughter energy reached 10 million, all of the life seals merged together to form a strange symbol. This symbol contained the power of 10 million strands of slaughter energy. At the moment it appeared, it immediately left Wang Lin's control and imprinted between his eyebrows. This symbol penetrated through his body and landed directly on his origin soul. It integrated with the origin energy inside his soul. As the two fused, there was a mysterious transformation that immediately cut the connection between Wang Lin's origin soul and his body. Then his origin soul melted within 3 breaths of time and was absorbed by that symbol. Then all of the vitality in his body turned into a strands of grey gas and was also absorbed by that symbol. Wang Lin watched all of this from a third-person view. After experiencing this firsthand, his eyes revealed thick coldness and monstrous killing intent. He watched his body and origin soul, his everything, get absorbed by the symbol made of 10 million strands of slaughter energy. Then the symbol broke out from his body just like a parasite that had absorbed all the nutrients from its host's body. Then the symbol flew out with the smell of blood and with a bang turned into a strand of slaughter energy. This was the real slaughter energy. Wang Lin's heart trembled. Even though it had been some time and even though he was flying right now, just recalling that scene made him feel lingering fear. He took a deep breath. The coldness and killing intent in his eyes were about to explode, but he immediately hid them deep inside of himself. Wang Lin wasn't able to distinguish whether the scene that occurred in that mysterious space was real or fake. However, with Wang Lin's understanding of the celestial slaughter art, he felt that it wasn't fake. Wang Lin recalled the mysterious state he was in. It was as if time itself had descended on his body and allowed him to instantly comprehend a spell to its completion. This allowed him to deepen his understanding of the spell. Those gifted by the heavens could even create a spell that belonged to them under this mysterious state. Then, by using countless simulations, they could refine the spell countless times to finally reach a state of near perfection. Sun Yun was someone who did that. Wang Lin's talent changed a lot during these 800 years and was changed even more by his celestial body. Even so, compared to Sun Yun's talent, which even amazed the ancient demon, his talent was far too low. He couldn't create his own spell, but with his own wit and observations, he gained clarity in the shortest time possible in that mysterious space. He was more decisive than Sun Yun and directly fused with the grey-robed figure that was disappearing at the fastest rate. It has to be said that Sun Yun only regained his clarity after a majority of the illusions had disappeared. Wang Lin's decisiveness was an aspect that not something ordinary people could compare to. Even the All-Seer would never have guessed that Wang Lin would be able to obtain the secret of the celestial slaughter art during the ancient demon's inheritance. All-Seer. I once said that if you didn't turn your back on me, I wouldn't turn my back on you. Wang Lin's voice was cold as it echoed across the sky like the wind. The celestial slaughter art is indeed amazing. However, All-Seer, you are simply too vicious. Fortunately, my comprehension was low and was limited to only 1 million strands of slaughter energy. If my comprehension was greater and had achieved 10 million strands of slaughter energy, I'm afraid I would have already become a symbol. I would have become a true strand of slaughter energy and would have been absorbed by you. As Wang Lin flew, he let out a big breath. The grey-robed All-Seer said back then that he taught me the celestial slaughter art due to my domain. Back then, I didn't think too much about it. Now that I think back to what happened, I'm afraid it was because the All-Seer saw me cultivate the life and death domain back on Suzaku that he decided to accept me as his disciple. Wang Lin closed his eyes. When he opened them again, his eyes were clear. He teleported and disappeared. I'm a bit paranoid about this matter, so I can't make an immediate verdict. The All-Seer has been kind to me, and back then it was my own choice to learn the celestial slaughter art, but he did seem to push me. I will have to carefully observe this in the future. However, the All-Seer is simply too powerful. If I don't have the power, I can't let him know I know about all of this. As for the celestial slaughter art, I'll need to carefully study it to find an opening. Wang Lin remained at the Tide Abyss exit in the Fire Demon country for several days. He didn't place any powerful restrictions or seals. Instead, he did the opposite and left some simple yet extremely well-hidden restrictions. These restrictions had no offensive power, but they could act as a way of tracking people. If someone came out, the restriction would leave an imprint on them for Wang Lin to find. Unless their cultivation level was extremely high, it would be impossible for people to detect the imprint. After doing all of this, Wang Lin threw away all distractions and flew toward the Water Demon country. He was going to enter the Tide Abyss there and spend all his effort searching for Ju Yi. Ju Yi was his benefactor, so Wang Lin had to save him. Aside from saving Senior Ju Yi, there is also wealth. As Wang Lin teleported, his eyes lit up. Back then, during the Tide phase, he clearly remembered seeing wealth flash by him. Several days later, in the western part of the Water Demon country, at a place that was called the Cloud Sea. This place was covered in clouds most of the year. There was a crack on the ground deep inside the sea of clouds that extended for countless kilometers. This was one of the entrances to the Tide Abyss. For cultivators, 2 men and 2 women stood outside the sea of clouds and looked inside. This video will end here.